Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well. Thanks so much to all of you who tuned in for the live stream residency with my quartet. We had such a great time and we're gonna be putting out a bunch of content from those shows. And one thing we actually did during this residency is we made something for you guys that I'm really excited about. And so what we did here is we made an interactive masterclass where I break down a bunch of different soloing techniques, and then you get the opportunity to actually play along with us and even play with the rhythm section of my quartet. So this is gonna be a really cool resource for you, and what I wanted to do today was just share a couple of the techniques that we get into in that masterclass. I'm sure that these techniques are gonna help you improve your solos, so with that in mind, here are 2 tricks for playing better solos. So trick 1 is gonna be use rhythmic devices. So a lot of times you can get so wrapped up in the notes that you're playing that you can actually forget about an equally, if not more important concept to keep in mind when you're developing your improvisation, and that is, of course, rhythm. There's so many great techniques out there for line construction and harmonic devices, so a lot of people don't realize that there are actually a bunch of different ways that you can develop your rhythmic concepts as well. So one of the techniques that we get into in the masterclass is using different rhythmic devices to develop your solos and play more interesting lines. And so one exercise technique that you can do is repeat the same rhythm but change the notes. So it ends up not only being a great exercise for playing and developing a motivic theme, but it also actually ends up being an exercise in line construction as well. Because what you'll do is you'll be adjusting the notes to match the rhythm that you have to continue playing throughout the chorus. So for instance, check out this triplet-based rhythmic device from the masterclass that we use here on the Jazz Blues. When we get into the major 2-5-1 in bar 9 of the Jazz Blues form, we're using the same rhythm that we've used throughout the whole chorus. But what we do here is we actually use chromatic approach notes to get into the minor third of this minor 7 chord. Then we play the chord tones 5, 7, 9, and then go back to the root. In the next measure, we do a diatonic enclosure of the third, and then we play the chord tones 5, 1, and 7. So by repeating this rhythm throughout the chorus, we actually get the opportunity to try out different devices for line construction to make that same rhythm sound good throughout the form. You'll see the same exact phrase isn't always going to sound good as the chords change. For instance, if we do this same exact phrase that we do in bar 9 and 10, but we actually apply them to the first 2 bars of the form, it wouldn't sound nearly as good. Or check out if we do that same phrase over bar 5 and 6, where you'll hear it also won't line up that well. So all this to say that even though this is really a rhythmic device, it's actually a really valuable tool for practicing outlining harmony as well. And of course, one full section of the masterclass is dedicated to line construction. But now let's analyze that rhythmic device from a more rhythmic perspective. So you'll see with this chorus of triplet phrases, which is one of the rhythmic devices used in the masterclass, it actually uses a call and response approach. So as you can see, it's almost the same rhythm in measure 1 as it is in measure 2. But there's one subtle difference at the end. The second version of the rhythm is just slightly shorter, ending with an accented quarter note as opposed to 2 eighth notes. That essentially creates this call and response effect by posing a question with the first part of the phrase, and then giving an answer in the second measure with the last part of the phrase. Then, as you can see, throughout the chorus, we continue this repeated 2-bar phrase rhythmically, but we change the notes each time, as we were talking about earlier. Now, it's important to note that the purpose of this exercise is not to solo exactly like this when you're improvising. You're not going to take a solo where you play the same rhythm over and over again for a full solo, or probably not even for a whole chorus. But this is a technique that you use to practice that's going to make you solo a lot better. It's going to develop skills and techniques that's going to improve your playing. A lot of people don't realize that many of the best things to practice to help you improvise and solo better are improvisational games like this that actually challenge your mind to think differently while improvising. And so these exercises or games like this are ultimately going to help you improvise in a way that's a lot more fluent. So you're really gonna sound like you're speaking the language fluently and coherently. So as I mentioned before, one of the features of this masterclass is that it is so uniquely interactive. And so you're gonna have the opportunity to play these improvisational games back and forth with me and my quartet. And of course, you'll have the quartet rhythm section comping along with you while you play. So for all these rhythmic devices, you'll have the opportunity to play back the material after every chorus I play, either just playing the same thing I played or trying your own version of the concept based on the guidance of the masterclass. And so we'll actually give you a sample of that here, where you're gonna be welcome to play along with the rhythm and what I play in this video. And then you can try playing your own chorus back, where you'll play and improvise that same rhythm, changing up the notes. And so of course, this might be a little fast for you, so don't worry, the masterclass is gonna give you guidance for understanding each rhythmic device, and it's also going to have slowed down version, so you can get a run through at it that's gonna be at more of a tempo de lerno, so to speak. But for now, just go ahead and give it a try up to tempo for fun with me in the band, and just see how it feels. So again, this is one of a bunch of different rhythmic devices in the full masterclass. This technique is going to be a really great way to get you improvising in a way that's a lot more fluent, a lot more spontaneous, and it's going to change your mindset when you improvise. So it's really going to adjust your way of thinking when you're soloing. And as we were talking about earlier, it's also going to help you connect your lines together, and it's actually going to improve your line construction. And so with that in mind, let's take that up another level, and let's actually check out a section of the masterclass that's dedicated to line construction specifically. So the second trick for playing better solos that we're going to get into now is going to be using enclosures into chord tones. Chord tones are really the foundation of what makes a line melodic. And so in fact, just soloing with chord tones on their own is a great technique and something that we get into in the masterclass. But for now, let's go beyond that and let's talk about using enclosures into chord tones. So an enclosure is simply a string of notes that wrap around a target note. And by wrap around, I mean that the enclosure notes will be a combination of notes above and below the target note that it lands on. Now, usually that target note is going to be a chord tone, and that chord tone is going to land on a downbeat. That's going to sound the most melodic and centered. Now, of course, we don't have to play melodic and centered. You can play more outside the tonality, which is another concept that I get into in the full masterclass. But remember, the better you get at playing inside, the better you'll be at playing outside, because then you have better control of the tension and release. Now, enclosures can be diatonic or they can be chromatic. And when you use chromatic enclosures especially, which jazz legends like Charlie Parker used all the time, they're almost like mini devices for tension and release. For instance, check out this exercise from the masterclass where we get into doing enclosures into the third of every chord on a blues. Exercises like this are such an effective way to internalize the concept of enclosures. And if you look at bar 4, you're really going to see how it's a device for tension and release. What we're doing here in this chorus is 3-note chromatic enclosures into every chord. And so you'll see that result in us playing a few notes that would sound very tense against each chord if they were played just by themselves. But when we put it into context of the enclosure, it sounds very melodic. For instance, check out what this concert E sounds like on an F7. And then check out what this concert G sharp sounds like on a C minor 7. And then this C sharp on an F7. So none of those notes sound melodic or harmonious, but as soon as we put them into context with the enclosures, it actually sounds really melodic. Check it out. So one of the things that we do do in the masterclass that's gonna help you get really fluent with this concept is we do enclosures into every single chord tone on every single chord of a blues. So we do enclosures into the root, we do enclosures into the third, we do enclosures into the fifth, we do enclosures into the seventh, going through every single chord of a full blues form. And that's one of the best things that you can practice to start bringing out this concept into your playing. I find that being able to use chromaticism in a melodic context is one of the main things that really separates a professional player from a more developing improviser. So if you want to get deeper into this concept, the masterclass is definitely going to be a great resource for you to get deeper in this. And so for every technique that we get into, you're going to have the opportunity to play through with myself and the rhythm section in my quartet. This is the first time I've made a fully interactive masterclass for you guys, and I'm really excited to hear how it works for you. We've got tons of concepts in there like range expansion exercises for building intensity in a solo and all sorts of other techniques. So I think anybody who checks this out is really going to benefit from the experience. And if you do want to pick that up, you can actually use a coupon code CLB10 to get $10 off this week at jazzlessonvideos.com. You can get $10 off of this masterclass or actually any masterclass on the site. So make sure to check that out, and I hope you enjoy the resources there. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Make sure to click subscribe if you haven't done that already, and definitely give this video a like if you enjoyed the content. I always want to know what you guys want me to cover next, so if you've got a request, definitely put it in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching.